Have you ever snapped a photo only to find out that later that your subject was blurry? It's frustrating, isn't it? But what if I told you that there's a way to make sure that your photos always come out sharp and clear? In this video, we're going to dive into the world of autofocus and focus points and show you how to use these tools to take your photography to the next level. Autofocus is a camera feature that makes sure your pictures are clear and not blurry. It does this by automatically adjusting the focus of your lens to make your subject look sharp. Autofocus uses a special system in your camera that has a sensor and a motor. The sensor looks for edges and contrasts in the scene and then sends that information to the motor. The camera has different focus points and areas. These are like little boxes on your camera screen that the autofocus system uses to find your subject. The number and layout of these boxes can be different depending on your camera. To use autofocus, you can use the arrow buttons on your camera or touch the screen to pick the focus point or area that is closest to your subject. This makes sure that your subject is in focus. Some cameras have a single focus point. This is like a little small tiny box that you can move around yourself to focus on your subject. This is good for when you want to focus on a specific part of your subject, like your eyes, for example. There are different focus areas you can use too, like single point focus, zone, and wide area. These work better for different kinds of pictures. For example, single point is good for still subjects that are not moving, while wide area is good for subjects that are moving, like a runner or an athletic event. When you use autofocus, it's important to think about how much of the picture you want to be in focus. This is called depth of field. If you want the background to be blurry and smooth and the object to be sharp, you can use something called a wide aperture. If you want everything to be in focus, then you need to use something called a narrow aperture. More on that later in another video. It's also important to consider the distance between your camera and your subject. The closer your subject is to the camera, the shallower your depth of field will be. This means that if you're taking a close-up picture of a flower, for example, you can use a wider aperture to blur out the background and make the flower stand out more. Understanding autofocus and focus points is important for taking great pictures. By picking the right focus area and mode and thinking about the depth of field and distance, you can take pictures that look really great. It's important to practice using autofocus and experimenting with different focus areas and their modes and depth of field to find out what works best for you and your pictures. With practice and patience, you can improve your photography skills and take amazing pictures that you can be proud of.